Welcome to Finding Forgiveness, a family fairy tale podcast. Join host Susan Gibson as she summons the courage to ask the hard questions, probes deep, dark secrets, and attempts to fill in the gaps while exploring the relationship between her and her mother. Discover the magic of self-discovery, relationship exploration, and the profound journey of forgiveness. Now, your host, Susan Gibson.
Have you ever been betrayed or betrayed someone else? Perhaps it was a mutual betrayal between you and someone else, or even you and yourself. 2009 marked the big betrayal for me. I'd been working for a particular company for 5 years at this point. I'd done well in those 5 years, working closely with the CEO and the founder. I was part of the global management team, heading up global people operations, traveling the world, and loving my job. I'd built my career as a consultant since graduating from college in 1984, feeling successful in my professional life, having the accoutrements of that success: houses, cars, international vacations, giving trips away to family. However, deep inside of me, I felt out of sync with the professional world around me. I'd been in a bro culture for a long time, and I was starting to feel the effects of that. My insomnia was out of control, my excessive consumption of alcohol and caffeine, flying out every Sunday or Monday for work, flying home every Thursday or Friday. I was constantly tired. I stopped paying attention to my personal life. My job was sucking the life out of me, though I was still completely unaware of this at the time. Then came the betrayal. It was a three-pronged betrayal. The founder to me to the founder, me to myself. I was asked by my closest colleagues and confidants to find a way to remove a toxic individual from an important client. We created a plan to remove this individual. I was to join the client engagement, partnering with the person leading the engagement from another consultancy. I was to not only be with this person throughout every day and at any location, I was to also speak with all of our employees and consultants working with this toxic individual, collecting the evidence needed by HR to build a case for termination. I knew that I was taking a huge professional risk, but I thought I had the right support to carry forth our plan. I even asked every person in the room for their commitment to me to have my back should the plan fall apart. Everyone wholeheartedly gave me their assurance that I would be protected. Betrayal number 1, the founder to me. The founder was not in this meeting. However, he did say he supported the plan, and he assured me this was the right thing to do. This toxic person had been causing damage for years, and it was time to bring this to a close. What we all underestimated, including the founder himself, is that the deep emotional attachment he had with this individual. A deep emotional attachment that spanned years. A deep emotional attachment where both individuals knew the deepest intimacies of each other and loved each other unconditionally, regardless of the consequences. When it came time for me to make a move against this toxic individual, thus revealing the plan all along, the founder came to their defense, and I was on the outside. All of those people who had committed to having my back retreated. The founder made it clear to each of them that their career and reputation were on the line. I carried on with my work, but a crack had appeared. Betrayal number 2, me to the founder. The second prong of the betrayal started out with a desire to take this important client from the primary consultancy. I had a long conversation with the founder and told him that I had no moral dilemma in taking the client from this primary consultancy. I wanted assurance that there was nothing legally binding in our contract that would make this action illegal in the eyes of the law. I was assured there were no legal implications. Because I had been engaged to partner with this individual, traveling from location to location with them, being in every meeting with them, I could observe how they conducted business, how they treated their consultants and ours, and had a general feeling of mutual respect and transparency in our business dealings. Sharing this with the founder, there really was no action that could be taken to remove them from this important client. I suggested we wait it out until their contract was coming up for renewal. Until then, I would start meeting directly with the client executive, getting to know them, letting them see our contribution to the success we were having, a contribution that was separate from the primary consultancy. I even invited this executive to an analyst conference and got them time with an analyst specializing in the client's industry. For the founder, waiting wasn't an option. He called an emergency meeting with everyone in his inner circle, which now included me. He wanted to know when the next meeting with the client executive, the person I was partnering with from the primary consultancy, and me, when was this next meeting going to happen? I told him date and time for the coming week. He said he wanted to attend and for me to get him invited. He said he wanted to accelerate the transition to us being the primary consultancy with this client. And he asked if I would cover him in the meeting, and I said, of course. But I had no idea what he was planning, and it wasn't good. The meeting started with those of us in person around a conference table, the founder on the phone. The meeting followed its prescribed agenda. Everyone was amicable and professional. Then the founder spoke up. He started a rant that was unprofessional, to say the least. He started verbally attacking the individual from the primary consultancy, accusing them of the most abhorrent behavior. Then he said that I was the one who observed this behavior and had shared it with him. Those of us in the room were all in shock, speechless, looking around the table at one another. This person from the primary consultancy looked at me and asked, "Is this true?" I said, "No, none of it was true." The crack became a chasm. It was only a matter of time before I was terminated. When I met with the founder after much insistence from his inner circle, I couldn't speak. It wasn't that I didn't trust my voice, it was that my brain wasn't allowing me to speak. I wrote on the whiteboard what I was feeling. I wrote, "For the first time since joining 5 years ago, I no longer want to work here." Before I could resign, I was fired. All of my work friends scattered. No one returned my calls or emails. I was utterly alone. Betrayal number 3. Me to myself. What I learned throughout this experience is that I'd been betraying myself all along. I was not staying true to who I was deep down inside. I had buried that person so deep inside of me that I didn't even know who she was. Once everything stopped around me and I could start to listen to my inner voice, I started discovering who I really was, who I really am. Even though I was deeply hurt by these betrayals, I also felt a sense of liberation as I started this self-discovery. It was no time to retreat. I had to keep moving forward, creating new choices. And that I did. I started my own consultancy, building up my brand based upon my core values: respect, fairness, integrity, gratitude, to name a few. I started saying no to things that didn't align with who I am. That was scary. Not something I had done regularly in my life, but something that was necessary to allow my newly discovered self to emerge. It takes courage and sacrifice. I had to stop my old ways and start some new ones. I had to essentially strip myself down to my core in order for my newly discovered self to emerge. My emergence had to include forgiving my mother. It took me a few more years to get there, but I eventually did, with help from my life partner, to whom I am eternally grateful. I learned so much from these 3 betrayals. The first, and if I take betrayal number 1, the founder to me, I would never agree to go behind somebody's back to, cause a great act of sabotage on their professional career without their knowledge. I would never do that. As I mentioned, everybody involved in that plan underestimated the relationship that individual had with the founder. Even he underestimated that. He thought he was ready to have her exit the company, but it wasn't going to happen. If I were asked to do that today, 15 years later, I would go to that individual with mediation, with help, not with somebody intimate with her, such as the founder, but somebody from HR, to have an objective conversation with them. And then, with their permission and with the support of HR, I would conduct interviews talking with everybody who had worked with this individual. There's no way I would engage in that act of sabotage. Because to this individual's credit, she was defending herself as well. Her livelihood, her reputation, her experience, her skills that she brought, and she was an incredibly successful and contributing member of the company, as well as a member of society. And I was singularly focused to remove her based upon toxicity of the situation. I didn't understand or realize. I didn't have that political savviness yet within the company to understand the repercussions of that act of sabotage. And while those individuals who committed themselves to me and swore they had their back, when they were confronted with their own career, reputation, ability to take care of themselves, their family, their community, one told me, quite frankly, my back was against the wall. It was either or. And either you stop supporting Susan or else. And that individual, as did all the others, chose to stop supporting me. And that crack emerged, and I knew it was there. However, I was raised with, strong work ethic, and, you keep moving forward. There are a lot of choices that you're faced with, some good, some bad. And when you've made a bad choice, you carry on and you let your good hard work demonstrate your commitment and willingness to succeed in that environment. But the crack was there. So that when betrayal number 2 came, I was acting like I was fully engaged. And being part of the inner circle of the founder, that's like being invited into a secret society. And yeah, my ego had a part to play in that, as anyone's ego does, in how we show up in the world and how we interact with others. And I felt privileged that I had been invited into the inner circle, but I didn't fully understand what that meant. One thing it meant was giving up any free time that I had. And I was devoting so much time to my job, with the traveling that I was doing every week, with the long hours, with not saying no to things that, just kept piling on and on. At this moment in my career, I basically had 3 jobs going on at the same time. And there's no way I could have been successful with all of that going on. I was completely overburdened and overwhelmed, but I appeared as though I was showing up. And whenever the founder had his emergency calls, whether it was 9 p.m. on a Sunday night or, 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, absolutely was always outside of normal business hours. I showed up, but I wasn't fully present. And on this particular occasion, when the plan had been formed, this second act of sabotage that I was a key player in, that I had agreed to, I didn't fully understand at what lengths the founder was going to go to try to remove the primary consultancy for this client. And he owned the company. He had every right to do whatever he wanted, and I didn't fully understand that. I was much more logically thinking about it, and then, had made my observations, had collected my evidence, had established respected partnering with this individual from the primary consultancy, and with the executive at the client, and presented myself and conducted myself professionally with both of them, while also, building their trust in me and creating an atmosphere of advisory, providing my advisory services to them. And what I did not anticipate was the anger that was building up in the founder. And it wasn't necessarily anger towards me. However, I was the target of that. Ultimately, I was the target of that anger. It was anger built up that he could not get what he wanted with any means possible. And while he accepted my logical approach to wait it out and continue to build deeper relationship with the client, something in him wouldn't allow him to do that. I don't know what that was. We tried, after the first meeting, at the insistence of his inner circle, which I was no longer part of, obviously, when I didn't side with him and back him up with all these horrendous accusations he was making, I was out. I was completely out. And after the initial meeting, where I couldn't speak, I went back to a confidant of mine who was part of the inner circle, and he brokered a deal between the two of us to meet once again outside of the office, neutrally, a neutral ground where no one could watch us, meet for a coffee. But by that time, it was over. The break was there. He did attend. He allowed me to speak my mind, and he told me it's irreconcilable. There's no going back from that. That the betrayal was too deep. My loyalty was not with him. And he was actually right about that. My loyalty was not to him. He was absolutely right about that. So what would I have done differently with that situation? I never would agree to sabotage a relationship from a primary consultancy to a client. Never. Never. And those situations do come up in the consulting world. And I try to be as transparent as possible about what's in my heart and mind when that situation does arise. And it did arise again, and it has arisen a few times since that in the last 15 years. And I try to be as transparent as possible to say, this is actually the situation. Let's talk it through. I am not trying to steal your client with you as the primary. However, I'm with the client every day. So let's find out what we can do to make sure you feel safe, secure, confident that I am not trying to steal the client. Because that's how consultants work. You establish a very deep relationship with those that you're working with at the client. And I work with executives, and I establish a deep, trusting relationship with those executives that can look like when I am not the primary consultancy in there, it can look like I'm trying to sway them away from the primary consultancy. That's the nature of the work. However, what I've learned is be transparent, be above board, give assurances, and let your actions fulfill the assurances, not just talk about it. Then betrayal number 3, me to myself. That was a long time coming. I was formed by the masculine world. I appeared to assimilate, though I hadn't really assimilated. I never would give up my way of speaking, my way of showing up, my way of dress and behavior, and personal style. Though I was very corporate, and I actually loved the uniform of the corporate world. It made things very easy. I still basically do uniform dressing, whether it's athleisure wear, casual wear, or corporate wear. I do like the uniformity of my personal style that comes out. But I always struggled with that inner conflict between who I was and who I am inside, and how I was presenting myself. Because that bro culture, having been a developer for so long, moving into management consulting, the business of corporates is a bro culture. The culture of developers, I say this with that, I feel sad about it. It is still a bro culture. Though, I'm always hopeful things are changing out there in the world. But I do still witness and hear stories from women and those individuals who identify as women in this bro culture. And, I do hope things change every day. Every day, something I firmly believe in and support out there in my ecosystem. The voices of women and those identifying as women, to amplify their voices and to dampen the bros that are out there, perhaps speaking inappropriately, acting inappropriately. When I'm witness to that, I, in my own way, will shut that down and let them know that is not appropriate. It will not be tolerated. But the betrayal to myself was a long time coming, and it took that chasm to occur in my professional life to fully understand the betrayal the betrayal of myself and all the acts of self-sabotage that I had been engaged in leading up to that moment. And as I was so utterly alone and looking around with no support around me whatsoever, I needed to do something radically different. And that forced me to quiet everything around me so that I could focus on what my inner voice was trying to say. So I could hear the universe speaking to me. And it was incredibly eye-opening. And it caused me great anxiety in ways. It caused me to feel embarking on something absolutely brand new, which has a form of excitement to it as well. And during that time, I was also, the primary breadwinner in my marriage. So I had a lot of responsibilities that I needed to take care of and pay attention to. And as those few years progressed, I realized that I was leaving my marriage without being completely aware of it. So many things were transforming inside of me. And the big one was, all these other things are big, no doubt about it. But the big one was finding that path to forgiveness with my mother. I'm grateful I got there with her. If you've experienced an act of betrayal and have a story to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at hellosusan@findingforgivenesspodcast.com. Thank you for being with me today and listening to my podcast, Finding Forgiveness, a Family Fairy Tale. I welcome your comments. A big thank you to the team at Produce Your Podcast for helping me share my family fairy tale. Until next time, I'm Susan Gibson, signing off with gratitude and appreciation.
Thank you for listening to Finding Forgiveness, a family fairy tale podcast. To continue the conversation, visit findingforgivenesspodcast.com and send an email to hellosusan@findingforgivenesspodcast.com to share your story. Until we meet again.